through bioregulation and biofeedback, training them to rewire their brain for higher consciousness. It's no longer mystical. It's science. The two operating new discoveries in science, one is neuroplasticity, that just by changing your patterns of inner experience, you can rewire your brain. And the other is what is called gene regulation. After I finished at Cisco this morning, I went to meet Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who got the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2009, to talk about the fact that our so-called genes are not fixed entities. You know, the human genome has you have about 23,000 genes. There are some worms that have more genes, and 65% of your genes are the same as a banana. So, you know, it's not our genes that make us who we are. It's how we think, how we behave, how we consciously learn to live our lives. You can change or upregulate 500 genes that code for diseases like heart disease, certain types of cancer, autoimmune illnesses. Gene regulation and neuroplasticity are giving us a new idea of the human body. It's not a structure, it's a process. There are no structures in the universe. Everything is a process, and every process occurs in the field of consciousness. So based on that, I created this course for leaders, which is based on inner work. And here's my first slide, which is that your consciousness, which is literally your soul, if you will, your non-local self, is simultaneously manifesting as your moods, emotions, environmental situations, behavior, biology, social interactions, personal relationships, perception, and even the environment and nature's forces, because nature's forces outside you and nature's forces inside you are the same. The same electrical storms that create lightning in the clouds, also the same electrical storms create thoughts in your brain. There's no difference between nature's forces outside or inside. Very totally consistent with Eastern wisdom traditions. And with that as a basic understanding, I created this acronym, which is how do you rewire the nervous system to create literally the hardware in the brain for leadership. Learn and listen, look and listen inside. So we create something in our leaders called a soul profile. You know, Howard Gardner, who is one of the pioneers in leadership from Harvard Business School, you may be familiar with his name because he was the person who originally talked about multiple intelligence. So, you know, most people when they talk about intelligence, it's IQ. Well, we have musical intelligence, we have mathematical intelligence, we have body intelligence, we have spatial intelligence, we have creative intelligence, none of which is addressed in our educational systems whatsoever. Now, when I came here and Ming showed me around, I could see a lot of very interesting, playful creativity in this environment, whether it's the garden outside or, you know, your Google Maps or just the way things are placed here and decorated here. There's a lot of creative, playful energy here. And that is an extension of the consciousness here. You know, it's the collective creativity that is manifesting at that. So when you look inside your inner world and you ask yourself questions like, who am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? What kind of contribution do I want to make to my family, to the world, to the community? What are my unique skills and talents? How do I put them to use? What's really fun for me? What are peak experiences? What do I look for in a good friendship? What do I bring to a relationship? Who are my archetypes, my heroes, my heroines in history, in mythology, in religion? That kind of reflection starts a process in you that creates a vision automatically. And when we do it collectively, that vision can be very empowering. So based on a soul profile, then we create teams that are emotionally bonded, that limbically resonate with each other. And the limbic system resonating with limbic system. This is well-known phenomenon now, that when you look at teams that win, particularly sports teams, when you see the Super Bowl or whatever, the teams are pretty close to each other as far as talent is concerned. What makes a team win is the emotional connection in the team. Do they have emotional intelligence? Are they free of toxic emotions like resentments, grievances? As Nelson Mandela once said, holding a resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it'll kill your enemy. So how do you become emotionally free? How do you get in touch with your own feelings? How do you get in touch with the feelings of others? How do you resolve conflicts through creativity? Einstein once said, no problem can be solved at the level of consciousness at which the problem was created. You have to move to the next level of consciousness. So that brings us to expanding awareness and understanding both hierarchies of needs and hierarchies of responses. The midbrain acts just through fight-flight. The limbic brain can act through emotional dysfunction, reactivity, the controlling and manipulating a situation either by being nice or being nasty or being indifferent or playing the victim. And we learn these habits very early in childhood. So when you're about 3 years of age and you're out shopping with your mother and you want a lollipop and she says, no, I'm not going to do that because you got one yesterday, what do? First thing you say is, you play nice. Mommy, I love you. I'll give you a kiss. Will you please buy me the lollipop? And if she doesn't, then the second thing, what do? You play nasty. You throw a tantrum. You lie down hoping to embarrass her. You still don't get the lollipop. Then you go home and she can't find you. You're hiding in the closet and she says, aren't you going to come for lunch? And you say, leave me alone. You pout. You get stubborn, indifferent. And if that doesn't work, you finally go to your mother and you say, you play the victim. You're nice to my brothers and sisters. You're not nice to me. So by now she's fed up and she gives you the lollipop and your little brain says it works. And by the time we are 8 years of age, and this is, I'm not exaggerating, these are psychological studies, the average leader is an emotionally retarded male at the age of 8 years. Because the average leader reacts either from the midbrain or the dysfunctional limbic brain. If you can go beyond those two, you have what is called centered awareness, where you're present, where you're mindful. We have somebody here from Mindfulness Without Borders, where we're teaching, this non-profit organization is going across the world, teaching people, young children, mindfulness, to be aware of the moment, to be aware of what's happening in their body, to be aware of their breath, to be aware of their environment, but also to be aware of their inner world, their feelings, their inner images, their thoughts, their ideas, and all so easy to teach. So when you have access to this and you go beyond fight, flight, and reactive responses, you stop being controlling and manipulative through being either nice or nasty or indifferent or stubborn or playing the victim, then you have access to higher states of consciousness. Intuition, which is a form of intelligence that is contextual, relational, holistic, nurturing, doesn't have a win-lose orientation, goes beyond cause-effect because it eavesdrops on context. And when you have context, then you have creativity. True creativity can never be programmed into a computer because there's no algorithm for creativity. Okay? True creativity comes from the discontinuity, it comes from your soul. And beyond creativity is eavesdropping on the higher mind, the bigger mind that is, in a way, correlating everything in the ecosystem. We are part of an ecosystem. The world is our extended body. And so when you see the contexts, the meanings, the relationships, the archetypal themes that run the bigger context, you have creativity, higher vision, a sense of mystery, sacredness, and then, only then, you can dare to dream and take action. So we start as human beings, then you become human feelings, then human thinkings, and finally human doings. But our world is totally the opposite. Everybody is doing, doing, doing. There's very little thinking. It's mostly about me. There's hardly any feeling, and it's mostly dysfunctional, and there's no being. So wisdom traditions say the highest state of human intelligence is being. Just being. The second highest state of human intelligence is the feeling that we call love and compassion. The third highest state of human intelligence is the thinking that is creative, that can create new meanings, new contexts, new relationships, and new themes. And the least intelligent state of being is doing. But finally, when you do it on the basis of being, feeling, thinking, what in Eastern traditions we call karma yoga. The right thing at the right time, process orientation and not outcome orientation. Empowerment, leaders know how to empower themselves and empower others. And we find that people who feel empowered, they have three major characteristics. One, they have great self-esteem. They don't confuse self-image with self-esteem. Self-image is what other people think of you. Self-esteem comes from a deeper level by asking the questions that I asked earlier. Great leaders have great self-esteem. They have values, they live up to their values, and they use their strengths. Now, as part of Gallup, as a senior scientist there, we actually all know what our strengths are. So, for example, if you ask me, what are your strengths? I would say, I'm a futuristic person. I look into the future. I'm adaptable. I feel connected and I like to connect other people. I maximize the use of my energy and don't waste it. And I'm strategic. These are my 5 strengths. But when we work with teams, we identify everybody's strengths and then we create teams that complement each other's strengths. So when you have teams that complement each other's strengths, where everybody expresses their unique strength, you have powerful leadership. At Gallup, we also found out that if the people you work with, so if your manager, for example, your immediate superior, if he or she ignores you, your rate of disengagement goes up by 45%. 20% of the US workforce is not only disengaged, they're actively disengaged, which means they come to work unhappy and with the express purpose of making other people unhappy. Okay? That's 20%. There's another 45% that are disengaged. They come to work because they have to make a living. They punch in and they punch out. But they're not interested in what they're doing. Between the disengaged and the actively disengaged, the cost to the US economy is about $380 billion a year. If your supervisor or manager doesn't ignore you but criticizes you, your disengagement actually falls to 20%, which means your performance improves because you would rather be criticized than ignored. You don't exist when you're ignored. Now you're being criticized, you at least exist. On the other hand, if you're using your strengths and somebody acknowledges your strengths and notices your strengths and compliments your strength, your disengagement falls to less than 1%. So this has huge economic implications. Our career well-being. In the United States, more people die on Monday morning at 9 o'clock than any other time of heart attacks. This is an extraordinary accomplishment for which only the human species can take credit. There's no other animal that knows the difference between Monday and Tuesday. Okay? And so, career well-being is dependent on very simple things. Are you using your strengths? Do you have friends that you work with? Are you playful? Do you have a good time? Do you have self-esteem? And then, this career well-being is linked to social well-being. We found at Gallup, not making up this data, if you have a happy friend, your happiness goes up by 15%. If your happy friend has a happy friend whom you don't know, it goes up by another 10%. If your happy friend's happy friend has a happy friend whom you don't know, it goes up another 10%. So, why is this? It's because consciousness is a field. It's a field, just like electricity is a field. Werner Heisenberg, one of the original developers of quantum physics, he said consciousness is a singular that has no plural. Just like the same electricity is coming through my BlackBerry and through your computer and through this light, a single consciousness is expressing itself through all the diversity of living organisms. And that's why when we want to connect, we feel love and compassion are the highest truths. We feel happy. So Google, the perfect place to create networks of global happiness, where people actually know how to make each other happy. And there's a lot of research on that. Again, from Gallup, you are happy when you find a creative solution, when you find meaning and purpose, when you make somebody else happy, when instead of a problem, you see an opportunity. So, we know all the science, the statistics behind it, and how happiness actually brings on neurochemistry of immunomodulation, your immune system, your endocrine system, your thoughts, your feelings, and your biology as an integrated network of energy and information, and your mind as that process. Your mind is a process that regulates the flow of energy and information, not only in your body, but in your relationships. So mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. And now the mind is entangled, because of the internet, because of technology, because of Google, we have an entangled mind. What's happening in Egypt is affecting us, and what's happening here is affecting people in Afghanistan. It's entangled both in space and in time, because through culture and through history and through religion and mythology, our mind is entangled with the past. It's entangled with the future. It's entangled with each other. When we begin to understand entanglement and the power of entanglement, we have the means to use technology for creative problem solving. Right now, if I were to say there are 4 problems in the world that really need to be addressed immediately, one is conflict, war, terrorism. The second is ecology, devastated ecology. The third is radical poverty, where you live in a world where 50% of people live on less than $2 a day, 20% on less than $1 a day. You can never have social justice and peace unless we address this. And the interesting thing is, we have the collective creativity, the collective intelligence to actually solve these problems. To me, technology now is the solution, combined with a higher consciousness that feels connected and responsible. Because action without love is meaningless, and love without action is totally irrelevant. But when you combine the two and you use technology and the understanding of entanglement, there's no problem that we cannot solve. And technology is also unstoppable. If you are following the growth of technology, you'll know that the capacity of technology is doubling every year. The internet became commercially available in 1995. We are in 2010, 15 years, and see where we are. I can go on a computer with my little gadgets and see how my friends across the world, how they're sleeping, how well they're sleeping, how well they're rested, what their cardiovascular system is, what their brain waves are doing, and we help each other to grow, to evolve, to heal, to self-regulate. And all the data shows that when we come together to do these things, we are enormously successful because we are empowering each other. We take responsibility then for calculated risks, taking initiative and solving problems and doing it playfully and creatively. And finally, we understand synchronicity. One of the persons to talk about synchronicity, when you examine the lives of great leaders, he said, tell me, how did you become so successful? And this work has been done by Porras and Collins and by others. Almost everybody says, I was lucky. Or they say, I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or they say, if they're religious, they say God was on my side. Or it seemed a state of grace, or it was many coincidences. Well, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, and Wolfgang Pauli, the pioneer in quantum physics, they actually talked about synchronicity as a fundamental property in the universe, where at the most transcendent level, everything is happening all at once. There's no linearity in the universe. How does a human body, which has 100 trillion cells, each of them doing 100,000 activities per second, keep track of every other cell instantly. How does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby? Instantly, all at the same time. These are mysteries that are yet to be solved. I think we are moving to an era where we are going to understand non-local intelligence, transcendent intelligence, soul or spirit as the primary activity of the universe that operates synchronistically. And when you extend your boundaries, when you take away your labels, if you take away every label you've given yourself, then you are an infinite consciousness. You're a field of possibilities. And you start to see the environment as an extension of yourself. This environment is very good, actually. It feels very good because you can see it's an extension of your collective psyche and your collective consciousness. So that, in a nutshell, is the basics of what I think the future of leadership should be. That consciously we should create and rewire our nervous system so that through what is called long-term potentiation, we keep firing the neurons to wire the neurons to actually make leadership second nature to us. But true leadership, where we unfold our potential, we unfold the potential of others for greatness, and we use the principles of higher consciousness to heal ourselves and to heal the world. And no one is in a better position than you guys, because you're really laying down the neural networks of the planetary mind that is evolving right now. The planetary mind is evolving, and boundaries are breaking, whether they are national boundaries or ethnic boundaries or religious boundaries. They're going to break. It's unstoppable. And this is the divine manifesting through us as our technologies, a planetary mind. Thank you very much. Sure, we have about 10 minutes. So.
There's a microphone at the back. If you can step up to the microphone, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you for coming. I have a question. As I'm listening to you today, I'm bringing that to some of the events that I see going on in the world, and some of those are very hopeful. Obviously, what just happened in Egypt and what's happening through Middle East is a great example where this is coming together. But then, as I think more locally to our nation and our leadership, I really see that going in a very bad direction, and the use of propaganda and technology and just poor leadership. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
If you remember what I said in the beginning, the leader represents the collective consciousness, then we can't blame the leader. We are the creators of the leaders. So, in Mahatma Gandhi's words, can you be the change you want to see in the world? And, I am a very careful observer of what's happening in political leadership in Washington. For every congressman, there are 28 lobbyists. Just for health care, there are 14 lobbyists for every congressman. Special interest groups, military industrial complex, pharmaceutical companies, manufacturers of equipment. But I can tell you what's going to happen is, because of the new technologies, in a way the democratization of media is happening. The media right now is totally controlled by special interest groups. But as we begin to create our own media and democratize media, as we have television networks on the internet, if people create their own content, and if the content is good, reaches critical mass, you'll see a turn, but it'll take a while. It takes a generation to do this.
So I agree with you. Would you say we're kind of right now headed in the wrong direction and it'll turn around? Or do you actually just disagree with me and you think...
No, I think there's a lot of creativity at work, and as the creativity unleashes itself, the darkness also tries to keep up with it. And there's a time of what we call phase transition. Water comes to steam, that's a transition. There's a lot of boiling in the cauldron.
Well, thank you for your work. You're a positive force.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for coming. Here it is a great place, and I know we all very much enjoy working here, but at the same time, we're all extremely busy, and I think we often have very little time to even reflect on what consciousness is, or even attend talks like this. And I think most of us start early in the morning, run around to meetings all day, write code, and late at night, we're still thinking about our job and creating all this, goodness that we're doing here. But what's your advice for us to kind of sometimes break out of that mold, smell the roses, as you said?
I would say, and I can give you data to prove this, by the way, that from Gallup, where we gather this kind of data, that in an environment like this, which is very ambitious, but also very creative, take time to play during the day. Find time to get together, to be playful, to speak to each other, to exercise, to reflect, to meditate. Doesn't it take that much? Take a 20-minute break. Make it part of your policy. From what I know in Google, you guys participate in a lot of decision making, and you should do that. You should, get together as groups and create some rituals. Rituals of playfulness, rituals of reflection, rituals of exercise, rituals of mind-body stuff, whether it's Tai Chi or yoga or breathing techniques, and your productivity will go up. I mean, there's no question that productivity goes up. According to Gallup, we should be socializing 6 hours every day. And that includes at work, which means purposeless activity, playful activity.
But if you actually look at probably all of our calendars, they're just completely full all the time.
Change it. If there's any place where it can be changed, it's here.
All right, thank you.
Because you have a collective voice.
You talked about letting go of labels and just being. Can you give us some examples of how to do that? I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm an employee.
So you're a sister, you're a friend, you're a daughter, you work here. These are the many masks. These are the many roles that your spirit plays. So when you observe your different roles that you play, you recognize there's a part of you that is not the roles. It's taken on that role. In a day, I play many roles. I play the role of a doctor, of a teacher, or a writer, of a son or a father. But I have learned to reflect and watch myself. The great Indian teacher Krishnamurti used to say the highest form of human intelligence is the ability to observe yourself without judging yourself. So the more you observe yourself without labeling yourself, the more you'll realize that actually you're a field of possibility at your fundamental core being. And these roles are great, and you should play them well. But if you get sucked into the melodrama of the role, then you lose your spirit.
Thank you.
And I have a question that comes from my mom. And my wonderful mom, this is her question. What's the best way to imagine what you want without ever having the experience of it?
Well, all imagination comes from some kind of memory, either personal or archetypal or collective. The best raw material for imagination is mythology, because mythology represents, the word myth in English is related to the word mata or mother or matrika or matter or meter or time or measurement or music. These are all words that come from myth. So what's myth? It's the collective imagination of our ancestors that has lived through time. And when I was a little child, my mother would read to me stories from the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, because that was the imagination of the impossible. The monkey god flying in the air with the Himalayas in his hands. It stretches your imagination. But read the Bible and you'll see it's archetypal. The myth, the stories of Moses or David or Goliath or yeah, or Joshua, or read the Greek mythology, the Egyptian mythology. That's where the raw materials of our imagination exist. But now they're extending into outer space as well. Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. Yeah, so, there is no other place to enrich your mythology than the stories of the collective mind.
Thank you.
Right, shall we end it here? So thank you, Dr. Chopra,
Thank you,
for
Gopi.
coming to Google and elevating our collective consciousness in a short time. And you heard his advice, please go out and socialize or play. Thank you.